Hi, I'm Patti. I'm a jewelry designer here at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. And today I'm going to be taking you through making these beautiful twisted wire vine earrings. This is the fourth project in our Secrets of Wireworking series. You can see that the shape is kind of like a sunburst. We've got these great spokes with crystals, pearls, and the really cute leaf shape at the bottom. This is a trendy shape that we really thought that you'd enjoy making. So we're going to be using some bicones, some crystal pearls, some really pretty seed beads, some open shank ear wires, and some 26 gauge parawire. So when you're making wire vine, really it's about twisting the wire. We make these really cute little spokes, and you can see every other spoke is just a little bit different size. We've got about a 1-inch spoke and about a 3/4 inch spoke, and just all the way around. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and take about 30 inches of the parawire off the spool. I'll snip that off there and set that aside. So the first thing we're going to do is make the top spoke with a little loop in it that attaches to the ear wire. So I'm going to thread on one of the 6mm crystal pearls. So I'm going to make a wire wrap loop about 5 inches down. Doesn't need to be very big, just enough to get that ear wire on. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and clamp that loop. And I'll use my bent chain nose pliers to do that here. And then I'm just going to wrap the tail around several times. And then I have this short tail and a very long tail. I'm going to take this short tail and I'm going to go behind the pearl, pushing the pearl up against the wraps, and I'm just going to wrap it below the pearl just a little bit. Then I'm going to clamp both tails between my thumb and forefinger, and I'm just going to start twisting the pearl. And we're letting this twist down about 3/4 inch. And this is the real basis of wire vine, is just twisting the wire evenly. So you can see that I have both wires kind of loosely clamped between this my thumb and forefinger, and I'm actually twisting the bead, not the wire. And that's what's going to give you that nice uniform twist, like that. And you can see there's a couple places where it's not quite straight. I'll take my chain nose pliers and just even those out gently. Okay, now we've got the first spoke created in the piece. So the next thing to do is create this first shorter bicone spoke. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, and the very tip of them I'm going to measure out a little U-shaped bend here. So I'm just going to put my chain nose pliers right at the bottom of the spoke and bend the wire back up, just like that. So you have a very small space in between, 2.5 millimeters, something like that. Okay, now you can see that these spokes go around in a circle. But when you create them, you actually create them all in the same plane, and then you round them out later. So and the reason that we do that is to measure how tall the spokes need to be. The bicone spoke, this one, needs to be shorter than the pearl spoke. So it's a great measure if they're right up against each other like that. Let's go ahead and thread on one of the bicones. I'm going to hold the bicone just slightly higher than where I want it to be. I actually want it to be down here right below the pearl, but the wire, when we twist it, is going to take up some of that slack. So I'm going to hold it just a couple of millimeters higher here. Then I'm going to just bend the wire against the bicone, go around the bicone, and bring the wire back down that way. Then I'm going to hold the bead in my hand and clamping these wires together at the base with my thumb and forefinger, I'm going to twist the bead. And I'm just going to keep twisting until all the slack is taken up and we've got nice uniform twists. And you want it twisted until all the slack is taken up around the bead and it goes all the way to the base. And then I'm going to make a new bend right next to the original one for the next spoke. Okay, so it's time to do another purl spoke. So I'm going to thread on one of the 6mm crystal pearls. And then again, I want it at the same level as that original pearl, but the wire is going to kind of shrink a little bit as I twist it. So I'm going to hold it just a bit higher than that, just a couple of millimeters. Run that wire down around the pearl. Clamp it at the base with my thumb and forefinger and just start twisting the bead. Okay, then I'm going to straighten them back up. So I'm just going to make another bend and I'm going to keep going until I've created 8 spokes just this way. Okay, so from here I'll just make sure that they're all facing the correct direction. Great. Okay, now you can see in this earring we've got this little bit longer spoke with this really cute leaf shape at the bottom, so we're going to be creating that next. So we do it in a similar way. Just measure out those few millimeters with the tip of your chain nose pliers and push the wire against it. And I'm going to be measuring about 2.5 inches down here, about 2.5 inches. And just doubling the wire back on itself right here. Then I'm going to take the tip of my chain nose pliers and I'm just going to close the end of that wire up really nice and tight. Then about 3/4 of an inch down, I'm going to bow that wire out a little bit with my round nose pliers. Just like that. And then bring it back up. So I've formed a leaf shape, or at least a half a leaf shape. And then I'll pull my wire out. And with the round nose pliers, I'll kind of bow it around the other direction. And so we have a really nice organic leaf shape. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, and you can use your pliers to manipulate that as you like. Now that we've created all of our spokes, it's time to fashion them into a circle and secure the piece. So we've got the 2 tails. We've got a shorter tail, our original tail, and we've got the longer tail here. And I'm just going to bring the tails together. And I'm just going to leave a few millimeters on one of the tails because we want a few millimeters between these last 2 spokes that we're joining. And then I'm going to wrap the smaller tail around through the circle. And then I'm going to bring it between every other spoke. So I'm going between the next 2 spokes, through the circle, through the next 2 spokes, back through the circle in the center, through the next 2 spokes. Now I'm going to come around to the other tail, the longer tail. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go through the circle, go through the next 2 spokes over, through the circle again. See, here's the back side, so I'm going to bring those tails through to the back side. So we want to cut it off there. I'm just going to use my flush cutters and I'm going to snip off each tail right at the base. And then make sure to use your chain nose pliers to tuck those tails in a little circle. So we want the leaf at the bottom here, and we want this pearl with the loop in it at the top. And I want all the backs facing me right now. And then, so first thing I'm going to do is just kind of even these out. There we go. And if any of them look a little wonky or bent, if they don't look straight, I'm just going to use my chain nose pliers to straighten them up. And you can do that in different directions if need be. They look pretty good. Now we just want to round out the center. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and put it in the centers and just kind of straighten them out. And as you straighten out each little section, it'll round it out. And then any little sections that look a little funny, you can fix them from here, just micro movements. That looks pretty good. Okay, so the last part is to sew the beads onto the leaf. So I'm going to bring the tail of my wire a couple of inches up through the leaf and kind of clamp it next to the stem of the leaf. And then I'm going to bring it around and make a couple of nice tight wraps around the side of the leaf. Okay, then I'm going to bring the wire straight up and I'm going to use my chain nose pliers to make a 90-degree bend in the wire, just about 1 millimeter up from the leaf. The reason I'm making that bend is that I'm going to thread on a seed bead. Get a couple of those. And I want the seed bead to fall right against that bend when I've threaded it on the wire. Just like that. Then I'm going to bring the wire back through the leaf. And you want to make sure it doesn't kink up. So take your time getting it through there. There we go. And I'm holding the tail really nice and tight, and I'm making sure that that bead kind of stays upward so the top of the bead is on the top of the leaf. One second, let me get it all the way around here and I'll show you what that looks like. Just like that. Okay? And then we're going to make a second 90-degree bend in the wire. Same as we did before, just about 1 millimeter up from the leaf. And that might twist around. That's okay. You can just hold on to that tail to try and get it to stay up straight. There we go. And then I'm going to thread on a second seed bead. And let that fall right against the bend again. Right up next to the other seed bead that's there. And then we'll just bring the wire back through again. And all the way around nice and tight. And then you can kind of manipulate those seed beads so they're just where you want them. Then next we're going to put on a bicone. So let me get one of these little 4 millimeter bicones. And so the bicones are a bit bigger, so we're going to make a bend a little bit higher, maybe 2.5 millimeters up from the leaf. Thread on the bicone. And let the bead fall right against that bend, just like that. And then bring the wire back through that leaf. I've got a lot of wire here and I really don't need that much, so I'm going to go ahead and snip some off so it's a little easier to work with. There we go. I'm just wrapping it nice and tight around. And then we're going to put on a 4mm pearl. Make that bend, thread on the pearl, let it fall right against the bend. Bring that through the leaf. Try not to let it kink too much. Up and around. And I do have a little kink in the wire here. I'm going to straighten that out so I can wrap on that last seed bead. Okay, so I'm going to make that little bend in the wire about 1mm up for a seed bead. Thread on the seed bead. And let the seed bead fall right against the bend. Bring the tail through the leaf again. And then I'm just going to end it with a couple of nice tight wraps here at the other end of the leaf. One more. Okay, then I'm going to come around to the back side, and using my flush cutters, I'm just going to snip off the tails on either end. The last thing to do is make the ear wire. You can see that we have these open shank ear wires, which are great for customizing your piece because you can add matching beads. So we'll add one of the 4mm pearls. And then one of the 6mm bicones. And then to finish that off, you just make a simple loop. So hold the beads right up against the hook, push that at a 90-degree angle, take your round nose pliers, and then about the middle of the tail of the shank there, you're going to start rolling it up with your round nose pliers all the way until it hits the bead nice and tight, and then kind of kick it back a little bit so the loop is centered, and then use your flush cutter right where they join to cut off the tail. And then the last thing you do is find the front, because you see that the wires go down the beads in the back. Find the front, orient that to the front of the ear wire, grab your chain nose pliers and open that loop sideways, and then work it against itself, rock it back and forth until you get a nice tight connection. Straighten that up a little bit if you need to. And there you have your beautiful wire vine earrings. So in this project, you've learned to create wire vine, and you've learned to sew beads on as embellishment, as well as creating an open shank ear wire. And in our next Secrets of Wireworking project, Project 5, we're going to be making this gorgeous Tree of Life sun catcher. It's highly embellished with spirals and glass leaves with this really cute little owl detail in the center. And you're going to be learning to make this great figure 8 messy bail. Thank you for being with us here today, and we will see you next time.